One, 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 one. The mic on. Boom, boom, boom. It is yellow. Testing, 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 testing. I got the orange one too. Uh, nothing. Bop, 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 bop. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So, what's up, Doc?
Testing.
All right, let's switch to the orange one.
Orange, not red.
I got the orange one here. I got the orange one. One, two, three. One, two, three. One, two, three. Bump, bump. Oh my. We have a quandary right now. A bit of a hiccup. Yeah. Bit of a hiccup. No sound. My. I can't get no satisfaction here.
Testing.
I can't get no.
Testing.
One, 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 two, three.
Testing.
One, 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 two. One, two, three. Let's see. Whoa, whoa, whoa. One, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, three, one, two, three. Maybe we need batteries. One, two, three. Let me try to put some batteries in. Really, but we. It was one, 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 one. Pulpit Mike. 1, 2, 3. Uh, yeah. The main lever is up. 1, 1, 1. One, one, one. Hey, now. Test. Hey, Kev. Hey, real quick, because I'm trying to start Bible class. The mics are not coming out the main speakers. Do you know why that might be happening like this? I can't get a sound in the sanctuary from the mics. Okay, I'm 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. The yellow one. 1, 2. Up, 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 up. Whoa. Is that it? That okay? Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Okay. YouTube, can you hear me? On Facebook Live, can you hear me? Just type in, yes or something. Okay. Thank you very much. All righty. All right now. All right. Okay. So we are. Okay. Ghosts in the machine. Okay, we're going to open up in a word of prayer. God, thank you for this day, this time, these who have gathered virtually and in person. Now we pray as always for your spirit to give us the guidance, insight, understanding, and clarity that we need. In Jesus' name, amen. Wonderful. So I'm going to start out with Psalm 139. We've come to the end because we won't have Bible class the next 2 weeks because next Tuesday is Christmas Eve, and then the following Tuesday is New Year's Eve. And so we'll start back in the new year in January. And so at 6 o'clock, we're going to be looking at Michael Harriot's book, Black AF History. When we come back, right? That's the book, Black AF History. Yes, we are going to finish it tonight. Do 2 chapters. All good things must come to an end. We'll do some review. How about that? We'll do some review. So, Psalm 139. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search me, you search out my paths and my lying down. You are acquainted with all my ways, even before a word is on my tongue. O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle in the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me become night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that I know very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes beheld my unformed substance. In your book were written all the days that were formed for me, when none of them as yet existed. How weighty to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. I try to count them. They are more than the sand. I come to the end. I am still with you. Oh, that you would kill the wicked, O God, and that the bloodthirsty would depart from me. Those who speak of you maliciously and lift themselves up against you for evil, do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts. See if there's any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Psalm 139 perhaps is the Bible in miniature. Of all the verses of scripture that we can read, Psalm 139 is at the top of the list because of the context, because of how David walked through the reality, the feelings, the expression of being with God, and how God is able to know us before we know us, know our words before we speak them, know our thoughts before we think them, how it is utterly impossible to get away from God no matter where you go, and how marvelous are the works of God that have formed our very being and body. And then David gives us another human expression, and that's hatred. We have been told, don't hate people, that you don't want to hate nobody. Well, hate is an emotion. It is an emotion that all of us have. And it's like anger. It's not that you shouldn't be angry, it's what you do with that anger. And the same way with hate. So it is an emotion, and the psalmist lifts, this feelings, because he's not just hating for hating's sake. He has enemies that are taunting him, and the people that are taunting him also disrespect the name and the presence of God. And so he gets livid. He expresses how he loathes, how he gets livid that people can speak maliciously against God, that people can act so arrogantly, they lift themselves up against God. And so he shares here that he hates them. And not only just hate, he says, I hate them with a perfect hatred. And then what he does, and he says, your enemies, God, are my enemies. Okay? Now, he closes Psalm 139 with the way he opens it. This is why this psalm is so important, because we as humans run through ranges of emotions periodically throughout the day. If you look at the different expressions of emotion that you have in a day, you could probably count 10, 15 different types of feelings and emotions you'll go through in just one day, maybe even more, sometimes less. because things, trigger us, right? And so there's sometimes we're going to be angry, sometimes we're going to be happy, there's sometimes we're going to be peaceful, other times we're going to be, boisterous and talkative. There are times that we're going to feel sorrow, depression. There are times that we're going to feel hate. Depending on what it is, there are times we're going to feel hate. And so he shows us what to do. He closes the psalm the same way he opens it. Except this time, the first time he said, God has already searched me and known me. God already knows my heart, my mind, my words. And then he closes it by saying, I need you to search me again. He says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts. In other words, he knows I can't hold on to this hatred. He knows I can't hold on to destructive emotions. And so he wants God continually examine me. When we take communion on Sunday, oftentimes you may hear me say, quoting Paul, do not take communion unworthily. It's in the scripture. Paul said, don't take it unworthily. It says, examine yourself. So every time we take communion, we should pause for a moment. That's why I have us pause and talk to God about the areas in all of us that have not come under submission to God. There are areas in all of us that have not come under submission to God. And so I asked us on first Sunday, just take a pause for a minute. You ain't got to publicize it, but just talk about those areas that have not submitted and surrendered to God's will and God's way. And all of us know those areas in our life, right? And so we do that. We examine ourselves, and the psalmist says, ask God in prayer to examine me. Examine me. In other words, it's not my neighbor, it's not the person around me, it's not the person that I don't like, it's me. I need God. Because again, we live in a country that loves to point fingers and try to absolve itself of responsibility. So the names of people are legion, who always blame somebody else for their, for not feeling good, not being happy, not being joyful. And they always want to blame somebody, but they rarely say, you know what, it's me. It's me. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer, right? Exactly. Not my brother, not my mother, not my sister, it's me. And so the psalmist in this very, very vulnerable psalm, this is a psalm like last year we used when we fasted, and we're going to probably do that again. We fasted from right after New Year's Day. We started that Sunday, which was really Mondays. We started, midnight. And so we're probably going to do it again till the end of the month, to fast so that God can examine us. And we can walk with God as God takes us on an examination of our very spirits and soul and heart, right? As we hold God's hand and let God examine us. That kind of language is interesting, isn't it? That we're going to hold God's hand as he walks through our inner self. You don't hear that. You don't hear that a lot. You hear it maybe in church every now and then, but we don't hear it a lot. Reason being because this country doesn't want you to examine yourself. It doesn't want you to be honest and authentic. It wants you to be somebody else. See, it wants you to try to be somebody. It want to be a celebrity, right? You don't be a celebrity because that celebrity just live lush life, right? It wants you to always be somebody else. And the key is we are to be who we are. So that's the psalm. I wanted to close out with exegeting that and encourage you, because again, we're going to use this psalm again for our fasting. It's good to read portions of it each day. Just read a little portion and then sit in silence for about 5 to 7 minutes and meditate on it as you say, search me, O God. Search me, O God. Test me, God. Search me, God. Test me. And then sit in silence for 5 to 7 minutes, right? Trying to discern the voice of God and hear what God says about us, because when we do the internal work, then the external work won't be a problem. So now we're going to move into Parker Palmer's book, the last 2 chapters of Let Your Life Speak. again, when we start back in January, I'm going to review this because, first of all, I know that during the holidays, everybody ain't going to be reading Black AF history. So we'll do a review a review of Let Your Life Speak as we prepare ourselves to go into Black AF history. So in chapter 5 of Let Your Life Speak, Parker Palmer comes off of chapter 4 where he talked about his depression and the benefit of hitting rock bottom. We talked about that when you hit rock bottom, you ground yourself, right? So we see it as a negative when in reality, it's not that you want to hit rock bottom, but there are times where we get too full of ourselves, right? We don't do what I want to do when I want to do it, right? No matter what anybody say, right? And then things fall apart, right? And when they fall apart, now I can get in tune with myself because that's what I got left. I got me left, right? And I can stop all the churchy stuff, right? I can just be honest with God. Because, we're real churchy, we're real churchy. I understand that God sits on the throne. God sat on the throne, like I said last week. God sat on the throne when they stole our people from our homeland. God was sitting on the throne. So when we say that cavalierly, we think that is like a magic bullet, magic potion that you can just say, God on the throne. No. It takes more than that. God's on the throne. God is always on the throne. But what is God asking you to do? I made the example when Moses was at the Red Sea and the water, it's an ocean and they got the army behind them. Moses tells the people, you're going to see the salvation of the Lord. In other words, God going to fix this thing just like that. And God said, that ain't what I raised y'all up for. He said, you got the staff in your hand, stretch it out there. What you waiting on? It's up to you. You take the step. See, we always have to take the first step. Because God, what did I say Sunday? God wants to be able to count on you. See, can God count on you? That's one of the reasons Mary was chosen, because God could count on her. And if God can count on you, then God can conceive in you, right? And so, we get to a point where we can now, dismiss the churchy language and get real with this faith walk, okay? So Parker Palmer talks about that in the 4th chapter, and then he says, moving from the bottom to leadership. Now, when he talks about leadership, he clarifies that this is just not a person in leadership. What he points out is that all of us are leaders. All of us are leaders. We have leadership in somebody's life, be that our children, be that nieces and nephews, be that other family members, people we may work with. We are in the same neighborhood. We all are leaders to somebody. And so this thing about being a leader, he says the most sensitive and compassionate leaders are the ones that hit rock bottom, that have gone through extremely rough times. Why? Because you're humbled by the humiliation, right? The humility comes in, and then most of the time we begin to think about where we hit rock bottom, and we're less judgmental on other people. We're less condemning and and nitpicky and all that type of stuff with other people, and that's what makes, he said, that makes leadership. So he, in some examples, you think of Reverend Harriet Tubman. What was rock bottom? Now it wasn't her fault. She was in chattel slavery, right? You don't get much lower than that, right, in your life, right? Where it's not only that you are trafficked for profit, but then all of your life is confined to you making the plantation owners money. And no breaks, you know, you just work. You're a tool, right? Imagine how devastating to the mind and the heart and the soul that is to be seen only as property, something to be used, and to be used harshly. In fact, plantation owners treated their horses and livestock better than they treated the Africans they had in slavery. They treated their tools better. You know, they treated all the other things better than they treated the people that, you know, they were forcing into labor. And so Reverend Harriet Tubman comes out of that. In other words, she emerged from that darkness to lead others to the light. So that's the other part about, you know, going through. When we go through with the foundation that God still loves me, that God is still with me. The psalmist said, David said, I am with you. He said that in Psalm 23. So I don't know, David says that often, because in Psalm 23 he says, you know, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. And here, as he goes through in this psalm, what we looked at a couple weeks ago, he says in Psalm 139, I am still with you. In other words, God don't let us go. And so emerging from you know, moments of despair and a season of grief and frustration, we're looking for lessons, we're looking for insight, we're looking for messages that help us understand us better so that we can move on after this season of suffering is over. So Reverend Harriet Tubman, because she had been in darkness, comes to the light of who she is and who she belongs to and what shouldn't be happening. She then leads other people to light, right? She took her faith, which means risk. Why? Because I'm doing it to glorify God by making a difference in other people's lives who need to know the light of liberation because they too have been in this darkness, right? Same way with Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass said, I prayed every day, all day long, and nothing happens until I started praying with my feet. You catch that? So, you know, he had been praying like Paul, you know, similar to Paul, but he had been praying, you know, God, end this, end this, end this. And God said, no, no, no. I have created you to change things. And that's the part where, unfortunately, too many church folk and whatever church, you know, they go to, we have been conditioned to think that God gonna do everything for us, you know? You know, God will fight the battles you can't fight, but the battles you can fight, you got to fight them, right? And there are a lot of battles that we can fight, a lot of things we can do, but faith is risk. What are you risking? You're risking it on God. And so, you know, we like things, we like to have control and all that type of stuff, and how things gonna turn out. It's not about how it turns out. It is the fact that you engage in something that was beyond you to make somebody else's life better. Whether it goes the way you want it to go or not, you have already, by that fact, you have been approved of God because you tried. You got in it and you worked it as much as you could, right? Because we have been taught to think of results. And it's not about the results that gives the reward. It is the risk that you take, okay? So he says leaders help liberate the hearts of others. The heart liberated will then liberate other hearts because it is what is the power of the inner life. Again, that's why going through this soul work is so important. You know, with the next 4 years, we've got to be anchored, as you know the song, we got to be anchored in our soul and spirit. That's why all of this conversation about, do you know who you are? Do you know what you're here for? Do you understand the voice of God? Have you got clarity on that voice? Because God is not going to holler and scream at you. You got to sit in silence. I said last week, we pray too much, in the sense we talk too much in prayer. We should be striving to be able to sit an hour in just total silence and commune with God that way, right? But we have to work our way up to that. And every choices are important here. Every choice indicates a priority, right? So if I say, we need help with the food giveaway, or we need help, join the choir, whatever, and a person says, well, no, I can't do that, I got something else to do, they have made a choice of what is a priority, right? And they have said that this is more of a priority than that. You see what I mean? Because every choice reveals our priorities. And so the power of the inner life helps us understand what should be a priority and what we should not call a priority, right? And that's just having clarity. But it starts within. It starts within. It starts with, again, you keep hearing me talk about this thing about silence. It is the way that we get in connection with God as a practice. It's called a spiritual discipline. Howard Thurman wrote a book, Spiritual Disciplines, right? And so Power of Life is on the inside. He says, having vision versus thinking. So vision comes from the inside, but many of us get caught up with the external, what we call reality, right? And so you get in a conversation with some people and you talk about doing some great things. And that will really be a challenge, that will really be risky, that will cost something, that will cost sacrifice, right? And oftentimes you'll have somebody say, well, reality, how would they say, I'm just thinking of reality, Reverend. We don't have that many people in the church. We don't have that much money in the church. So I'm just being real. That's it. I'm just being real. I mean, you see what we got, right? Now, I know I'm not the only one that has heard that from people when we start talking about doing something, really, I hate to say big, but something that, really stretches us, right? We always hear, well, I'm just being real, that, I don't see this happening, right? And they say, look at this, that, and the other. Look at the numbers of people. Look at the money. You're always saying that we're not giving enough and stuff like that. So I'm just being real, Reverend. Well, there's a proverb comes from the continent of Africa that says, any fool can count the number of seeds in an apple, but the wisest of persons cannot count the number of apples in a seed. Let me say that again for the back row, the visual folk, the virtual folk. It says, any fool can count the number of seeds in an apple, but the wisest of persons cannot count the number of apples that are within the seed. In other words, stop predicting what you believe based on your limited understanding and your lack of connection with spirit. See? Stop trying to stop progress because you're too focused on what you see physically and not focused on what will be revealed internally. Vision comes from the inside. So everybody should have some vision about their life. That, again, goes to purpose and vocation, but should have some vision about a life. Married people that are getting married, we talk about, okay, what's the vision for the marriage? There is a vision statement that I have people that I work with in premarital counseling. I ask them to create the vision statement. There are 4 questions that they have to answer in narrative form and write that vision statement for their marriage, and then hang that vision statement somewhere that's prominent in their home so that other people coming in their home will get a chance to glance at it and see this marriage is built on a foundation of a vision. Right? Write the vision, make it plain, right? And so vision comes from the inside. And the challenge we have is we are trained and and manipulated to focus on the outside. Focus on what a person is driving, where a person lives, what they're wearing, right? The restaurants they go to, and all of that type of stuff. The schools their children go to. We are trained to look at the external and not the internal. And so the other thing that Parker Palmer raises up is it leads us to examine how we measure success, meaning, and value in life. It cannot be externally measured. So one of the most irritating questions as a pastor I get from people is, how many members you got? Now, if I said, well, I got 1,000 members, that to some people is motivation for them to come to church, because they want to be where the high numbers are, right? Because they want celebrity status. And I've known a lot of people like that. You know, going to Trinity in Chicago, there were a lot of people in the church that were there for the celebrity, so-called celebrity status of pastor, right? Because again, people, he was known all over, and then the celebrity of going to a mega church, right? See, but that's how we've been conditioned and manipulated in this country to think more is better, right? When more is not better, right? And so we have to look at how we measure success and meaning and value. We got to change it from external stuff to internal stuff. That's somebody shooting, ain't it? I thought it was, but it's a little ways away. David, ain't that something? Whew. So measuring what we want, what we call meaning and success. We also do that with our children. For them to be successful in life, we want them to have one of them good paying, good benefit jobs that, that has a real nice title to it, right? Instead of what is your heart, what is your soul saying, right? Leaders, Parker Palmer says, will project light or dark shadows. So darkness and shadows are that which we have struggles with. So we have been, again, conditioned to think that darkness is negative, that stuff goes on in the dark that ain't supposed to be seen in the light. Ooh, we could talk about some stuff in the darkness, couldn't we? And so we've been conditioned in this life to see darkness as negative and light as positive. Parker Palmer points out that you can have too much light just like you can have too much darkness. They go together, darkness and light. You appreciate the light because you were in darkness. And the light also helps you appreciate the darkness, because what happens when you try to go to sleep at night? You turn off the lights. Now, if you leave the lights on, like, sometimes, when I don't sleep well, it's because I left the TV on. I stayed up too long watching TV, and I long ago stopped leaving the TV on when I go to sleep. Let me tell you something. If you ever want to have some wild, crazy, and just downright scary dreams, leave that television on while you're sleeping, because stuff is going into your subconscious. And it's going into your brain and your mind, and you wonder why you had that crazy dream. You know, somebody slashing me with 1,000 slashes. How did you dream that? Well, that television, you know. My dad used to call it the idiot box, right? And so darkness and light actually go together. He points out Nelson Mandela while he was on Robben Island for those 27 years. He and the others had to go deep on the inside because now they were faced with the overwhelming condition of being confined and being, being just like a slave, right? And so to be able to endure that, they had to go on the inside. And so Paul points out in 2 Corinthians 4, Paul says it's the things that are unseen that control the things that are seen. You can't see gravity, but gravity is the very reason why the chairs are not floating and that we are not floating, right? Your cars are not floating, right? Gravity is that. And so, but gravity cannot be seen. I remember I heard Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor preach a sermon. And he said, somebody asked him about a person who fell off a cliff some way and they died. And the person asked him, you know, I prayed, you know, as I saw their car rolling off the cliff, that God would suspend gravity so they would not be hurt. And Dr. Proctor said, do you understand the lives of people that would die immediately if God suspended gravity? You ever been on an IV drip? It works by gravity. Of course you had. Ever had to swallow some medication? Drink some water? Eat some food? It all works by gravity. The food don't go down without gravity. The pill don't go down without gravity. He said if God suspended gravity for that one situation, hundreds of thousands of people would die. You got to understand. You got to understand what you pray for, right? And then we get mad at God because God didn't do what we wanted God to do for us personally, and we forget about everybody else that, you know, the reverberations would touch. And so Paul points out, like I said, there are things that are unseen control the things that are seen. That's why this work, this spirit soul work is so important, because it's the things unseen. You know, when we've gone through a difficult diagnosis, what are we encouraged to do? To begin to have some joy, to begin to look at things differently, because stress and worry and doubt, anxiety and all of that is detrimental to our healing, right? That's why, you know, when you have a diagnosis, you're trying to get healed, you got to watch who's around you. You got to watch who you let in your ear, right? You could be sick at home, you know, trying to recover. Somebody called from whatever church called. They say, I was just called to check on you because I heard you were down a little bit. Yeah. We've been praying for you. And you know what? You remember so-and-so? Yeah, Sally. Yeah, Sally. She's a hot mess. Girl, let me tell you about Sally. Sally was blah, 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 blah. And I just get on. And now for the next 45 minutes, they're going to just badmouth everybody. That you don't need that in your spirit. You know, and you're trying to recover. You don't need it when you're well, right? Because again, it's allowing, you know, some very terrible things to begin to take root. So also in Let Your Light Speak, he talks about when you're facing storms, and so he gives the illustration. He did some rock rappelling. He had never done it before. The guy put the harness on him and all that type of stuff, and then the guy said, "Now you got to jump off this cliff." He said, "Devil's a liar. I ain't jumping off this cliff. Ain't no other way to do this." He said, "No, there's no other way to do it." He said, "You got to push away from the cliff, and you got to rappel down the cliff." So he finally did, And but first of all, the guy said, you got to lay back like this, because he was trying to go down like this and he was bumping into the rock. He said, you got to go back like this with your face to heaven. I'm telling you, exactly. And then you got to let your feet, walk you down. Well, he was doing it, and he said it was okay until there was a hole in the cliff, in the rock. And he got to that hole, and there's no footing to do the rappelling, right? And he says, I can't do this. You got to pull me back up. The guy said, I ain't going to pull you back up. And he looked down, he said, you got to get something to let me down. The guy said, no, you got to come down. And he said, they told him the only way through it is to get in it. The only way through is to get in it. And so he had to rappel around that hole all the way down. And so there are things that happen that we have to, in some ways, embrace the darkness. That even in darkness, David said in Psalm 139, God is light. Darkness and light are the same to God, right? And so darkness is not there to kill us or mess us up. It is there for us to have the solitude and the solace to get into it and understand what we're going through. And he talks about insecurity and knowing your worth, in the sense of many men don't feel that they are fully a man if they're not bringing the check home, right? If they don't have a job and they're bringing the money home, right? And that's external, and that becomes their worth. So you ask a lot of brothers, who are you? And they'll say, I'm an electrician. I'm a lawyer. I'm a therapist. Well, I didn't ask you what you do. I asked you who you are. You know what I mean? You ask, and it's not just men and women too. Who are you? Tell me about yourself. Well, first thing I'll start with, I'm a bus driver. I'm the president of a university or whatever. And that is how we don't see ourselves. We attach ourselves to what we do that makes money, and that gives us worth. You getting it? We've been conditioned to do that. And even in the medical field, he points out a lot of doctors, and this is a way of arrogance to make oneself feel better. All these things. Because if I say I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a bus driver, I'm an electrician, then I'm trying to elevate myself because I don't feel I am enough. And so I'm lying to myself to be a little more arrogant. And so he says even doctors, they'll tell the nurse, the kidney in room 201, or the pancreas in room 316. Well, in other words, they're identifying people by their illness, right? They're not saying Miss So-and-so in room 316 who is dealing with blah, 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 right? But again, these are things we just don't think about, but that have skewed the way we walk in this faith and has prevented barriers for us to really understand who God is with us. And so he says we have, in other words, we're looking at the world that we live in differently. There are ways to see the world. We have to look at different ways of seeing the world as the things that happen in life, darkness, light, even negative things that happen. They are a part of our growth. Let me see. 2, 3, yeah. So there is this part he makes. It's a very good point that if you notice, I am going to go into chapter 6 because that's where I'm going Any questions so far? I'm skipping over some stuff because I want to get through this because there's some important stuff in chapter 6. He talks in chapter 5. He talks about fear, the fear of the natural chaos of life. Parents, teachers, CEOs try to eliminate all remnants of chaos from this world. So when God created, the scriptures say, when God created the earth, it was chaotic. Remember, it says it was chaos. And I remember the late the Harvard Hooper, wow, I'm forgetting his name, out of Detroit. Yeah, Charles Gilchrist Adams. He preached a sermon, Chaos versus Community, disorder versus order. And so God did not curse the chaos. God reworked the chaos. We try to avoid the chaos. Now, hear what he's saying. In life, chaos in life, I'm talking about it in the world. I'm not talking about chaotic Negroes. It is through that chaos that we are able to learn some things, to get some revelation from it. Our fears prevent us from seeing the purpose of it, right? Tornadoes have a purpose, right? Hurricanes have a purpose. We don't like them. Storms have a purpose, right? All these things are part of the whole natural order that we are a part of. And so we have been preconditioned to fear so much when in reality, in the midst of chaos, we can bring order from it because we are children of God. It is the other way that we see running from chaos is people, want to put more rules out and regulations than are necessary. So someone's always trying to control a situation by creating rules and regulations. And we need some rules around here. We need some regulations around. When you hear people saying that, they want to be in control, right? When you hear people say, what about Robert's Rules of Order? That person wants to be in control, right? Because they know Robert's Rules of Order, and most folk don't know it, but it is a way for a person to manipulate. In the Senate and the House of Representatives, they operate by Robert's Rules of Order. But, the Republicans look for ways to twist the rules. They're always looking at a way to get around the rule, because rules don't make us moral. Rules don't create order. What they do is they create people who then become the ones that are controlling it. So they tell you what you can't do. Well, the rules say we can't do that. And they bring up rules like that because they don't want to be stretched, right? I always remember when folk put limitations on you, they're putting limitations on you because they don't want to be stretched. Because if they get stretched, if you allow yourself to be stretched, then it makes them feel bad because they don't want to be stretched, right? You ever been around some people and you're talking about, the only thing I can think of is a big idea, a big opportunity to do something. And they'll bring up, the why we can't do it, right? Because they don't want to be stretched. They're comfortable. What did I talk about Sunday? We have to move from comfort to conviction. Many people are comfortable. I'm telling you right now, the next 4 years, that's why I said you're going to find out who really are the people who were serious about voting, in a way that will allow people to have dignity in their life. There are a lot of people that are on Facebook and all that and talking about, Project 2025 and all that type of stuff. But now that the election is over, there's some folk that are comfortable. And they just say, I'm going to just ride this out. I'm not going to do nothing else. I'm just going to every now and then put something out on Facebook or Instagram and whatnot. But I'm going to go about my business because I'm not going to get involved with anything else that will create change. When we got to create the opportunity to teach our children. We got to do that, right? We got to create opportunities to help folk have food and have clothes. We got to do that, right? We got to create opportunities for people to petition their elected officials, write letters and things like that. But there are some folk who are comfortable, right? And they think that they can just ride it out. When in reality, no, you can't just ride it out. So so in chapter 5, he talks about that the issue of fear. He says all of us are going to have fears. That's the other thing. You know, I've said it before and I keep saying it. Everybody gets afraid every now and then of something. It's a natural emotion that God gave us, and it's a good one. The key is that fear should not paralyze us. So what faith is somebody that put their fears on their shoulder and went forward in faith anyway. Nelson Mandela talks about, or there's a book, knowing, I forget the exact title of it, but a guy was interviewing Nelson Mandela. He had to talk to one of the high ups, one of the white Africana high ups, who was a very dangerous person, and he had to straight face, and Mandela developed what we call the grill, where he look at you and look right through you because there's no expression. So he had to do that with this guy to make the guy know he was serious, right? And so the guy interviewed him later on. He said, "Man, that guy's a scary dude." He said, "You weren't scared?" Nelson Mandela said, "I was terrified, but I couldn't show him I was terrified." And so you got to do something that you put your fears on your shoulders and move forward anyway. And the final thing he talks about in chapter 5, just briefly, he talks about denial of death. That sometimes we keep some things alive too long. Some relationships should have been dead a long time ago. Some so-called friendships should have been dead a long time ago. There are some things, he says, we keep them on life support, and they are preventing new growth, new vibrancy. You have to examine. There's some people that, as much as you love them, there's nothing you can do for them. You can be cordial with them and all of that, but that friendship just got to die. Right? You can't be chasing after nobody. There are a lot of things that we try to keep on life. There are some rituals that we have in church we got to let die. Right? Because it's only a ritual and a routine that was created by people to create control. So when I have tried to express that, I don't need you coming into church dressed up. That's your choice. Wear whatever you want. I mean, keep some clothes on, but yeah. Come on now. Wear something. But, that has nothing to do with your spirituality and your holiness. Your faith has nothing to do with what you wear. And there are a lot of people that don't have that you always hear somebody, they can get it, they can put on they can put on a decent skirt, or he can wear a decent shirt and all that type of stuff. What's that got to do with us worshiping Jesus Christ? Right? But we've been conditioned to to make those things priority over what is the real thing, how you treat that person. So let me go into chapter 6. There's a scripture in Genesis. It talks about seed time and harvest. So Parker Palmer talks about the language of life. And he said, we create metaphors to help us understand stuff, right? Metaphors. And so metaphors name our experiences of life. Metaphors can become our reality. So some people see life this way. You win some, you lose some. That's life. You heard that before? You win some, you lose some, but that's just life. You win some, you lose some. Do you know what that says about the way you think? It says you have a fatalistic way of thinking, right? It means that you have no impact in life. It just is. You win some, you lose some. That's called fatalism, right? In other words, it is like Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong is going to go wrong. And so you're always not comfortable. You're always expected as if that's the way life is. And that's not the way life is, right? Yeah. It depends on what you define as winning and losing. See, we say oftentimes in church there is no failure in God, right? So Jonas Salk invented the polio vaccine. Am I right? So what is not told is that Jonas Salk tried 100 different remedies for polio. 99 of them failed. There was the last one that he hit it. Reporter asked him, how do you feel about all those failures? He said, I never failed. Not one of them was a failure. He said, what each one taught me was that this is not the way. Do a little something different. And then he said, each time, what you call a failure was a learning process, and the learning process kept saying, okay, you're close, but you're not there yet. This is not the way. Now imagine what our life would be like if we looked at, things that people call failure as a learning step, that it shows, if I had it's the same way with, Mike is a musician playing on the saxophone. He going to hear himself play a wrong note. Does he say, I'm a failure, I played the wrong note? No, it told him that didn't sound right. Try this note, right? Imagine how much more power we would have within ourselves. He also, Parker Palmer in chapter 6, he says, the metaphor of nature is probably one of the best metaphors to use as we talk about life, because we use manufacturing metaphors more than we use anything else. See, in an agricultural society like Jesus grew up, the metaphors were about agriculture. But dig this, what manufacturing metaphors? I'm making a living. That's manufacturing. That's factory stuff, steel mill stuff. I'm making a living. In other words, I am making something happen as if I am God. Make time. Hear how it sounds. Make time. I am in the driver's seat of time. That's a manufacturing metaphor. Make friends, as if you can make somebody be your friend. But you hear that. You need to go out and make friends. Make meaning in your life. Or make money. Making a living. And here's the one. We're going to make love. He says a Chinese child asked his father, how does a baby grow? In America, we ask, how do you make a baby? We don't make children. We are vessels and vehicles for children to come through. God makes babies. And God sends them through whatever couple God decides. We're just a vessel. We don't make babies. And so we can't make things happen. We're not in control. In other words, our faith should be transforming us. If you have a relationship with Jesus and you're the same way that you were 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or 5 weeks ago, something is amiss in that relationship with Jesus, because this is a walk of transformation. And so we close out with him talking about nature. Take the season of autumn. See, the seasons change, And each of them have a divine purpose that is beneficial to all life, right? And so if we start looking at life like the seasons, right? That these are, and as we say, get in the season. So the season of autumn it begins with this vibrant beauty of, it has all of the beautiful colors of the leaves and things like that, right? But it is also a season of decline. And in that season of decline, as those beautiful petals and things like that are turning brown and yellow and orange and all of that, it spreads seed far and wide. Okay? So it scatters those seeds, and those seeds are the preparation for the season of blooming. So autumn starts early. As it begins to melt into winter, before it goes away, it spreads its seeds. We go through autumn seasons in our life. We don't notice the seeds that we scatter because we focus on the impending winter. We dread it. We don't fully appreciate autumn and the colors because of our dread of winter, which to us means death. We only focus on the surface, but beneath the visible, we miss how closed doors open new insight and opportunities. We miss how rejection in life is really a redirection in life. We miss how what people call failure in life is inspiration for us to do something different. In autumn, seeds of our life are spread to regenerate new life. In our autumn years, now we can pour our seeds into especially younger generations coming along. Death and life are not opposites. They work together. Just as the body must breathe in, it has to breathe out for life to be sustained. We can't have light without darkness. We cannot just have the good without the bad, because we've been taught to live in what is called a binary, a dualistic way of seeing things. It is either good or it's either bad. Well, both of them are together, because you can't appreciate good until you experience what we call bad. And you don't understand bad until you have experienced good, right? So you wouldn't know poison was bad for you if somebody don't get sick from it, right? So I mean, it is not binary. It is necessary to have what we call these, for lack of a better term, up and downs, because they teach us lessons, especially in this season of autumn. Jesus said, "Deny yourself daily." See, that's what autumn recognizes. The trees and the plants are denying themselves and giving away. They're giving away. And that's why the seeds get spread, right? And so Jesus said, "Deny yourself daily, take up your cross and follow me." Okay? So what does it mean to deny yourself? It means to re-examine the things that I want, to see what is it I need, and how much am I sharing with others? How much am I helping others? How much am I engaging with other people? Jesus said, "Deny yourself." Again, remember what I said about the priority of choices. When a person doesn't come to church, they made a choice. They prioritize something they felt is more important at that moment. Right? And you can tell they feel bad about it, or at least they know it. They know they made a priority decision, because when you see them, "I missed you at church." "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna come. I'm gonna be at church. I'm gonna such and such." Why they do that? Because they know the choice that they made was a selfish choice most of the time, just to do what I want to go to church, right? Just say it. I don't want to go. The season of winter sometimes feels like retribution for something we did wrong, especially in the Midwest. Winter makes it feel like death is victorious, but there are gifts of winter. It's a different kind of beauty than autumn. Autumn has one kind of beauty. And here it again, you see the diversity in life. God created diversity. We have people now that hate diversity who are in public positions right now, and one getting ready to go into the White House. They hate diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Why? Because that gives the spice of life, which is variety, diversity. It's better. Corporations know this. Corporations know that their companies run better when they have diverse people, especially working in supervisory positions and those working, in the labor force. Corporations already know it's more productive to have diversity. But it's right-wing folk that twist up the Bible who don't want diversity. They just want everybody to be white. And so winter has a different type of beauty. The blanket of snow falling. As much as I don't really like snow, I don't like snow not because of snow, but because I got to shovel it. That's the only reason I don't like it, because I got to get out there and shovel it. But Parker Palmer points out that, it is something magically beautiful about seeing the thickness of snow as it falls in the sky. It is beautiful. And no two snowflakes are the same. And seeing that it's like a blanket coming down. There is a beauty in that. Winter also has another gift, the gift of dormancy. In other words, deep rest. I was talking about this in the midday class, that winter brings the opportunity for the earth to rest. It can't continue to do the things that it's supposed to do without rest. Winter is a time of rest. The revelation in nature is that winter doesn't mean anything died. Nothing has died. It has retreated underground to renew and prepare for the spring. We need winter's renewing, going underground to do soul work so that we can then do the work of spring and summer. In winter, you cannot only see through what was once thick, like wooded areas, but you can walk through them. Winter also, in that rest, brings clarity. You ever notice that when you're hyper, when you are excited, you can't think clearly? But the minute you sit down, take deep breaths, you can begin to chart how your thinking is, right? And that's what winter brings, and that's what life, in other words, we have to take time to rest, right? Because, it blows me away that, as we drive in the spring and the summertime, you look at wooded areas, you can't see through there, right? And it's dangerous to walk through there, right? You don't know where you're walking. But in wintertime, everything is bare, and you can see all across the field right through there because ain't no leaves, ain't no bushes, and all that type of stuff. It brings clarity. Winter allows us to strip down like we're going to bed to bring clarity. It brings clarity in our lives about how we really got here. We all stand on the shoulders of people who came before us. But many of us act like we are standing on our own. The only reason any of us are here is because the people came before us who planted and who tilled the ground and provided the opportunities for us to have what we have. Winter is a time where we can recognize that we have this life only because of God. Winter allows us to rest and think about how good God has been in our life, how God has brought us a mighty long way, how God has comforted us when we were severely disturbed, how God helped us when we messed up on the job and they could have fired us, how God stepped in when we were going through a bad patch in our marriage and we could have walked away and ended the marriage, how God showed us where we needed to walk away from a marriage because it was abusive, how we needed to see that it wasn't our good looks or our intelligence. Somebody talked on our behalf to an employer, and that employer mentioned to us in passing, you know so-and-so? Say, yeah, well, so-and-so told me you the best, and that's the reason I'm hiring you, because of so-and-so. Winter is a time to recognize that we can't do this by ourselves. We just can't. It's a time of clarity where you be still without all of the without all of the pretense and stuff like that. That's winter. Often in wintertime, the things that we have labeled failure, depression, even in those, there's some insight we learn as we embrace the clarity. Why do you see it as a failure? And why are you looking at yourself as a failure? I remember Pastor Wright once told me, he said, John, people make mistakes, but they are not a mistake, right? And that's important because, this nation wants to make you think you are a mistake. You make a mistake and you notice people never let you forget it. Their neighbors, when I grew up, yeah, Johnny, I remember when you used to dump your newspapers behind my house, and then you didn't deliver them. You dump them in the garbage can so you go play basketball. Some people ain't gonna never let me forget that. Right? Yeah, I did do that. And I took the collection money too. Oh my goodness. My mama was never so mad, because I would bring the collection money collected for the papers home, and my mom would put it in this blue type pouch, right? And she would put it, under the buffet or something like that. And I knew where it was. And after a while, I knew that thing was filling up, before I had to turn the money in. And just one day, I wanted what I wanted, and I wanted it now. And I went in that pouch, took me a whole bunch of money, and went to the candy store and bought kites and all that type of stuff. And it just so happened that day was the day the guy comes to collect the money. And he gets there, and my mama goes in the pouch, and ain't no money in there. And she had to come out of her pocket. And so when I got home, you can guess what happened. Right, exactly. Negro, you let me embarrassed by this man, and then I had to go in my purse and money I didn't have. So there are people that will never let you forget mistakes you made, right? But you're not a mistake. And so we have to wrestle with those things because, failure and depression, they also, again, like I said, what is failure gives you the idea and the understanding that, okay, I can do better next time because I know better. And depression lets you know that, okay, you've been trying to do too much on your own. And things have not been turning out like you want them to turn out. And so now you have anxiety. Now you have panic attacks. Now you are depressed because now you think nothing is going to work. Now you think nothing is going to be beneficial. Now you think you're not worthy. And so in depression, you begin to see, why am I thinking like that? Why am I letting that get to me? Depression is a time where you can re-examine again yourself. And with therapy, right? So Parker Palmer says to get through the winter times that we have, which also, brings fears of different things, you need a good support network. You need people in your life that believe in you. You need to do spiritual groundwork, meditation, and, you need to do stuff for other people. Because when you're down, one of the things that gets you going like no other is to go sit at a senior citizen's home and just play some music for them or just have conversations, because guess what? They're sitting there and really nobody's talking to them, right? They're sitting days on days, right? And so when you go there once, they're gonna say, you gonna come back? And they know the day you say you're gonna be there, right? Do that. Or go volunteer at a school, help some children, young children out, read to them and things like that. There's things that we can do for other people when we are down that will lift our spirits, right? That will get you back on track. But if you do the same thing expecting different results, then we enter into lunacy, right? You can't do the same thing. In other words, you can't be down and then just go in the house and sit and just binge off of television, drink yourself to sleep, smoke yourself to sleep, eat yourself to sleep. Then you're doing the same thing, and you're creating destructive habits for yourself. So, when you're that down, then you got to figure out, okay, what can I do to help somebody? Somebody need their groceries, need me to go, get to help them carry the whatever it is. Think about doing things. That gets us through that winter time. He talks about spring, the season of spring, because we all go through autumn, we all go through winter, we all go through a spring. Before the beauty of spring blossoms, however, notice what happens in spring. It looks kind of ugly. So as winter begins to fade, we got mud and slush, right? And so it can fool you, because I'd say every year I'm going to watch the tree get its buds. And I tell you, every year it's the same thing. I say I'm going to watch the tree, and then I get busy going back and forth doing this and another thing. I look up, it's blossom. I'm like, where did that come from? But again, it can fool you. The mud is preparation for birthing new life. There's something about the soil. Spring starts slow, but it has a tenacity. That's called hope. Days get longer, gets warmer, and days become more green. Our life springs often overlooked. We often don't see what brings the spring in our lives, the spring season. We often don't take time to notice the buds of hope that God sends our way, right? And our late spring has just a incredible burst of blossoming. And so we have to look at our lives as a springtime. There are things that are going on around us that we cannot diminish, right? So I'll give you an example. There have been times where preaching is difficult, because you don't preach for responses. You don't preach for a response. You preach because you have to, because you're delivering the word. But it also, even though you're not doing it for that, it also means that you like to hear some of it, right? That's why pastors say, I can't hear nobody. Say amen, church. You know what I mean? Because you're working out of what your soul has wrestled with that week. And there are periods where I go and I'm just like, I ain't hitting on nothing, right? Lord, why'd you call me to preach? And I remember periodically, like last year I preached at a church. And afterwards, I didn't know the people. I knew a couple of people. Older guy walks up to me. He said, son, I want you to know you are a gifted preacher. That was a bud for me for my springtime. He didn't have to say that. He don't know me from Adam's house cat. He was sitting in the congregation, and most of the people just left. People heard, how people do after church. Hey, you got to get out of church. Exactly. And so he didn't have to do that, but he made his way down to tell me that. And I just say God sent a springtime bud for me, all right? And you're right. That's why whenever we have guest preachers, I say, you know what? Come on and shake their hand and encourage them, because they have wrestled with this for a week, because all the mechanics of it, is very challenging to then transpose it into a 30-minute sermon, 40-minute sermon, 20-minute sermon, 10 minutes, whatever time it is, to then, compose it into that and have it reveal something, give some insight, give some inspiration, right? It is a soul wrestling. And it's not like other things that we do in life. Sometimes we feel like we we may not have done the best we could as a parent, right? And every now and then, the Lord will motivate one of our children to just not even sometimes in words, but just the way they hang around us, that to give us that affirmation that they really appreciate how we parented them. There's some things they didn't like, but they appreciate it because especially when they become parents. Now this has been real good springtime, Bud, when to see two of my children have children, and then they start talking about, oh my goodness, I'm like, ooh wee, and then they start looking at their parenting based on ours, right? So there are ways that God sends these springtime gems that that allow us to then give generously and not begrudgingly, because springtime is a time where the spring leaves and all that are giving off something, right? I've said this before. Do anybody know the purpose of an apple tree? Okay, so the purpose of an apple tree is to give off oxygen. It takes in carbon dioxide, that which would kill us, and then the tree gives off oxygen. Oxygen is what we need to live. The purpose of an apple tree, like all trees, is to give off oxygen. In the process of doing what it was created to do, it has a special gift called an apple to further offer sweet nourishment. When we do what we are supposed to do in a springtime mentality of giving, of helping, periodically God allows us the reward of the gift of something sweet, a sweet smile, a sweet comment, a sweet moment in life, right? God allows that because we are doing what we are actually supposed to do. Yeah, I like that. I like that. The other final one is summer. Summer is a time of abundance. Fields are full, gardens are full. We got weeds in the everything is just out there. It's a state of plenty. We are trained to see scarcity, however. So think about summertime. And, it's summertime and the living is easy. Summertime. Warm, sun shining, beauty and all of that. And we have summertime in our lives where we have periodically more than we need ourselves. And so instead of allowing a summertime mentality to say, you know what, I got more than I need, I got to find a way to help somebody and bless them. We hoard because we think summer ain't going to come again. But the spring, the seasons change on their own. Has summer ever not come? It always comes. It's designed to come. So he says the good metaphor for life is looking at seasons of our lives, and you can work those seasons any way you want to. All this is just to try to help us understand and be clear about who we are and why we are. And that even in moments like these, of the election stuff and the depression that comes with it, God gives us lessons, shows us opportunities that we have to build together, to make a life together. There we go. See, make a life. To grow a life, right? Because we can't make it. What we're trying to do is nurture growth. How can we nurture growth in one another, right? That's what the objective is. It is the objective of helping the best in others grow. It's about speaking in a way that lets people that we encounter know that I'm not judgmental, I don't have to understand a person's belief system. So you can be a Muslim, you can be a Buddhist, you can be whatever. We're not in competition. That's a wrong way to see Christianity, that everybody's supposed to be a Christian in this world. That's not true. That is what people have interpreted the scriptures to say. They don't say that everybody. It says make disciples. In other words, the word that is chosen from the Greek, make, actually means teach. It means teach people about why you do what you do. And discipleship is what? Discipleship is honoring God however you see God in a way that blesses other people's lives. So, you know, I said earlier at midday, I almost started singing because I said onward. And the natural thing to do was onward Christian soldiers. I detest that hymn now because it is a hymn of war. The white folk came up to send people to war, to butcher people. All right. So, you know, this what the Let Your Life Speak and the Kurt Byron Jones Holy Play is about, that we can anchor ourselves internally first to understand the different moves and understand people a little better. So you understand now that there are some people that are not in touch with themselves. And so they take it out on other people in being deliberately manipulative, nasty and mean, judgmental, So, all these seasons were created by God as a blessing and a benefit. So we have to, and he talks about, in particular in that wintertime, if you go out in the wintertime, with the covering of your identity in God and your faithfulness to God, when you go out in the wintertime of your life, that's like in the wintertime, there are things that you discover that, that are quite insightful. I used to think that all birds and squirrels hibernated in the wintertime growing up, because that's what we were told, right? They still move around. In other words, life is going on underneath. And so all this is to try to not put the labels of negative and good on things that God has created. It is what it is because God created it for a purpose, right? And if we then we'll be less judgmental on other people. I don't know how to say that any more clearer. But other than that, I hope it's been helpful. As we walk this walk of faith, it is an intentional walk. It is a choice. It is showing what our priorities are. It is showing how connected we are internally to the God that we worship and we serve. It is demonstrating that God can count on us, you see? And that is the big one. Can God count on you? Can God count on you to do that which you are not comfortable with doing? Right? The only way we grow is to move in uncomfortable spaces. You put a seed in the ground. The seed has to become part of the soil. It has to take on the water. We call it a storm. The seed has to embrace that moment of darkness and solitude. And slowly the seed has to break the surface. It's not seed anymore. It is something different as it grows. You put one thing in the ground, something else comes up. We are seeds, right? And so we have to embrace all of the moments, knowing that some of them are very uncomfortable, but we move through them, knowing that I am gaining something so that when I break through the soil, I look different. You know, the metaphor of the butterfly. Butterfly has to go through the process of intentionally imprisoning itself and trusting the process in the darkness. And then what comes out is not a caterpillar anymore. Something totally different. And that butterfly can now fly where the caterpillar could only crawl. So nature is a good metaphor to use. So any thoughts? Any Yes, yes, yes. I was sharing earlier today. The question, I mean, the statement was raised because I talked earlier today that Paul in 2 Corinthians says, "It is the things that you cannot see that control the things that you see, and it is the hidden things." And so you can't see gravity. Um, but again, gravity is what enables us to live right now. There's so much you can't see that is orchestrating what you do see. You can't see the wind. You can see where the wind has touched something. So, the wind blows the plant and you can see that, the movement, and you know that it's windy because you can feel it, but you can't see it, right? It's the things that are unseen control the things that are seen. And in our humanity, indoctrinated in Americanity, we think it's the physical thing that you can see that controls everything. And that's not true. Even looking at, as I look at you and see the names on Facebook and YouTube, when you look at a person, you're not looking at the person. You're looking at the container that they are in. What animates you is spirit. There is an invisible force that we folk who have faith call spirit, scientists call energy. So that's why you can't create a human, because you can create a box made out of metal, and you can shape that metal into what appears to be, or plastic, what appears to be a head, and you can give it, limbs, but it doesn't come alive. You have to create that robot, you have to then, plug it in somewhere. Humans are not plugged in, right? So what is the real you is the spirit that lives there. And you can't see that. We just see the exterior. We dress up the exterior, we pretty up the exterior, we want to make the exterior something, and again, it shows again how embracing life and God is so essential, because we spend a lot of time and a lot of money trying to make the exterior look good rather than feeding the interior, right? We spend tons of money on fashion, on jewelry, on things to change what God has already created, because we value the external more than the internal. It shows us that external, we're being shown now. We grew up hearing about millionaires, Forbes 500 and things like that. And we were led to believe that these were incredibly smart people to make this amount of money. Now what you find out is there's a whole lot of dumb people that have made a lot of money. Oh my God. I mean, and so dumb, it is embarrassing. So that's internal. The external, in other words, the external, anybody can make that amount of money. If they make money, they're God. Just about anybody. I mean, you do have to have some privilege in this. You do have to have some people that are already, when the Microsoft guy and the Apple guy and all these folk talk about they built the thing, they built these things from nothing. They lie. When the guy that's going into the White House now talked about he built his empire, no, his daddy gave him a $2 million check and some other stuff. You know what I mean? They didn't start from scratch. No. But, it just shows the inside, has not been worked on. And what makes life worth the living, what gives life meaning is the internal as you relate to other people. Whole lot of people who have lived what we call their best life and had all kind of money and traveled all over the world 90 times over and all that type of stuff, when they, as everybody does, when they reach a point where the physical body deteriorates, then things that they should have done are more important, but you can't go back. So Rupert Murdoch is fighting with his children because he has an irrevocable trust. It's irrevocable. But now he regrets it. And he's fighting with his children because he didn't raise his children to be nice people. And he can't go back and change it now. You see what I mean? So what gives us peace that passes all understanding is to know who we are and why we are. I was talking earlier about connecting to our African roots. It's so essential, but it's so hard for most of us. I don't know how many people have told me I'm American. Well, I'm saying there's no such thing as an American. You don't realize that. These United States are not united. If you say I'm an African living in America or even African American, okay, you're closer to it. But when you just say, I don't have no connection to Africa, everything about you connects to Africa. You gotta, which is why we stumble so much in this nation, because everybody else that comes here, Chinese and Japanese go through the public school system like our children, but they also have what is called Saturday school, where they teach about their heritage, because they say, yeah, we live in America, but we have a culture before America, and we don't want to lose that. We want to cherish it, right? The same way with other groups of people, but only black people who have been so conditioned and brainwashed to divorce ourselves from Africa and say, I'm from Mississippi. And I was saying earlier, there's groups of folk now who want to identify with the lowest point of our journey. So they want to be connected to slavery. So they're American descendants of slaves, ADOS, or foundational black Americans, right? When if you start your history in slavery, everything else will look like progress, right? So you'll think that the first person to be a black person to be a millionaire or billionaire is we really done something. We did that 90 times over on the continent of Africa. Mansa Musa was the richest man ever in life, richer than Solomon. He had more wealth and he did something that the wealthy folk now don't do. As he made his pilgrimage to Mecca, he threw gold to people. He said, hey, take it. He disturbed the economies of every place he went through because people had more money than they ever had in their life because Mansa Musa came through there and just gave it away out of generosity of his heart. You know, we think the first person that runs a corporation, ooh, yeah, blah, blah. That's not progress for us. We've done that. We done that 4,000 years ago. So, you know, we ain't new to this. We true to this if we understand our connection, right? So, you know, I just, you know, I get tickled a little bit and I get sad because, you know, anything that identifies with Africa, including a picture of Africa, it kind of disturbs some of our people. They don't, you know, they don't want to be associated that way. They love to say they're black, but black doesn't connect you anywhere. Black is a description. There's no such thing as black and white people. It was an expression that we use that, first of all, white folk use to try to denigrate us, and then it's an expression we use to show that, you know, I'm proud of my skin tone. They said, when they start talking about black is beautiful, because before that, you know, white folk were saying that we're ugly, right? And we started believing that, you know, we have dark skin, wide nose, thick lips, mean we're ugly. And then, you know, some of our folks said, no, we ain't ugly. Black is beautiful, right? But it wouldn't mean that that's a culture. And when we say African culture, you know, I know that that's still too broad, but at least it links us to our origin. And so there is so much that we have already done. I am trying to put together a calendar now where starting in January, each day will be another illustration, something about us as a people, to generate what I call movement in what I don't call it. Dr. Greg Carr calls it movement in memory. Keep our memories, right? So during Black History Month, we always hear about, you know, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, and whatnot, and we should, but there are millions of other things that we need to have, and I want to get I'm trying to put together a 365-day calendar where each day it is something new, where we can see some other things that our people have done before we came here and after, right? So that we'll have it all together so we can see a continuity, a long line of greatness, because we are a great people, right? That's connecting, that's internal work, you know? That's internal work, right? So, yeah. Well, with that, any other questions or thoughts? Thank you all for taking this walk with us. And like I say, in January, we'll review this to go because it gives us some time. I told the midday class, write a song, a poem about God. And I'm going to say that to you all in virtual space in here. Spend time writing a poem, a song. That's what David did. Psalm 139 and Psalm 23 are a poem. They're a song about how he sees God taking care of him. So let's try to do that. Then we'll try to share some if you want to. With that being said, then we can close in prayer. Okay. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for these who gathered virtually and in person. Thank you, dear God, for the insights from Parker Palmer and from the psalmist David. Thank you, dear God, for all that you are revealing to us that we have yet to take in and understand. Walk with us, Lord. Speak to us, God. God, please minister to our souls with your whispers of courage, confidence, and contentment. Speak, Lord, for your servants are listening. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, thank you. Yeah. poems can be put to music. So yeah, about our walk with Jesus. You know, how do you see Jesus?